It was a slow Tuesday night at Miller's Diner, one of those forgotten roadside restaurants where the lights flicker, the coffee's always lukewarm, and the regulars pay with nickels. Behind the counter stood Ella, a 28-year-old waitress whose smile had grown thinner with every unpaid bill. She worked double shifts, sometimes sleeping in her car behind the diner because she couldn't afford rent anymore. But still she smiled, because that's what kind people do. They smile through the struggle. That night, the rain poured so hard it drowned out the old jukebox. Around 9:40 p.m., the door swung open and in stumbled a man. He was soaked to the bone, clothes ragged, hands trembling. He looked like he hadn't eaten in days. Ella's first instinct? Compassion. Pause. Slow heartbeat sound. He sat at the far booth, head down, whispering to himself. When she handed him a menu, his eyes darted to the cheapest item, just coffee. Man soft, "A shame, I'll just take a cup of water, ma'am." Ella looked at him for a long second. She knew that look, hunger hidden behind pride. So, without asking, she went to the kitchen and plated up the last hot meal of the night, the one she'd set aside for herself. Mashed potatoes, a small piece of chicken, and some bread. It wasn't much, but to him it was everything. When she sat on the table, the man's eyes filled with tears. Man whispers, I can't pay for this." "Ella," softly, "then just promise me you'll pay it forward someday. That's all I ask." He nodded, ate slowly, and when he was done, he left a note on the napkin. "For your kindness, I'll never forget." Then he disappeared into the storm. Scene shift. 2 years later. Sound of clattering plates, louder chatter. The diner's still there. But Ella, she's worse off. Her mother had fallen ill. Medical bills had piled up. The owner, Mr. Miller, had been threatening to cut her hours for months. And tonight it happened. He called her into the office, reeking of cigar smoke and greed. "M.R. Miller, gruff Ella, you're good with people. But business is business. You're the slowest on staff, and we can't keep everyone." She begged, pleaded. Tears welled up, but his face didn't flinch. "M.R. Miller, you should have thought about this before giving away food that wasn't yours." Her breath caught. He knew. That meal, her last meal, 2 years ago, he'd never forgotten. That night, she packed her things, stepped into rain again, and drove off into the unknown. Somber piano fades in. Life got harder. Nights got colder. Ella took odd jobs, cleaning motels, waiting tables at truck stops. But she never lost her kindness. Even when the world gave her every reason to stop caring, she didn't. Scene change, 5 years later. The sound of construction, high heels on marble floors. A new restaurant opens downtown, the Haven. Fine dining, elegant decor, and an owner everyone's talking about. A mystery philanthropist who funds homeless shelters, pays off student debts, and gives jobs to struggling single parents. That owner? No one knows his face. Until that one afternoon, Ella, now working as a janitor, walks past the restaurant and stops. A man in a tailored suit is standing outside, giving a speech to reporters. His voice sounds familiar. "Man, I built this place to honor someone who once showed me kindness when I had nothing. She gave me her last meal and asked only that I pay it forward. This restaurant, this mission, is my way of keeping that promise." Ella freezes. The world goes silent. It's him, the man from the diner. Cinematic swell. Music builds. After the speech, she hesitates, then walks toward him. He turns. Their eyes meet, and recognition flashes instantly. "Man, whispering you kept your promise, and so did I." He hands her an envelope. Inside, a letter and a check. Enough to change her life. But before she can thank him, he's gone. Scene fade, soft instrumental music. Weeks later, Ella returns to the diner, now boarded up. Mr. Miller lost everything after tax fraud charges came out. She walks through the dust and broken glass, remembering the life she once had there. Then, on the counter, she finds something strange, a napkin, the same kind she'd written notes on years ago. It reads, "Someone's watching out for you. Don't stop being kind." Her heart skips. Music darkens slightly. That night, she drives home, but something feels off. A black car has been following her for miles. Headlights too close, too steady. She turns onto a side street. It turns too. Her phone buzzes. An unknown number, that text message. "You were never supposed to see me again, Ella." Music cuts, silence. A single heartbeat echoes. He said he owed her his life. But what if the debt wasn't paid in full? It had been years since Ella last saw him. The stranger she once fed, the man who had built an empire out of her kindness. But that night, sitting alone in her car, the message on her phone sent chills racing down her spine. "You were never supposed to see me again, Ella." A slow heartbeat echoes. Her hands trembled as she reread the words. It didn't make sense. He had seemed kind, grateful, even emotional. So why the threat now? She dialed the number back. No answer. Just the hollow hum of a disconnected line. The black car behind her flicked off its lights and turned into a side street, vanishing into the darkness. Soft rain continues. For a moment, Ella tried to shake it off. Maybe it was a cruel prank. Maybe the number had been spoofed. But deep down, something told her it wasn't. She locked her doors, drove straight home, and stayed up the entire night watching shadows crawl across her walls. Morning, ambience fades in, birds faintly chirping. By dawn, she'd made up her mind. She had to find him, the man from the diner, the one who called himself Daniel Grant when reporters interviewed him. A Google search pulled up hundreds of headlines. Philanthropist and tech CEO Daniel Grant donates millions to food banks. Self-made mogul credits kind stranger for his success. But as Ella scrolled deeper, the story started to shift. Whispers, allegations, former employees missing, business partners bankrupt, and a quiet lawsuit filed by a whistleblower that vanished just days later. Ella's stomach twisted. She realized she didn't know who he really was. Later that week, she visited the Haven, his restaurant, hoping to speak with him, to understand. But when she arrived, it was closed. No staff, no customers, just a handwritten sign on the door, temporarily shut down for renovations. Except through the glass, she saw something strange. Boxes packed with shredded documents, the kind labeled confidential, and taped to the inside of the door, barely visible through dust, another napkin, the same kind she'd once handed him at the diner. It read, "I'm sorry. It wasn't supposed to end like this." A slow, tense piano note holds as she exhales shakily. That night, she called the police, reported the car that had followed her, showed them the text. But without proof, there was nothing they could do. Scene shift, faint city noise, echo of footsteps on wet pavement. 3 days later, Ella found an envelope slid under her apartment door. Inside, a photo, her, taken from across the street, and a note in the same handwriting as before. "Stop digging. Please." Her breath hitched. Someone was watching her. Heartbeat quickened. She called Daniel's company. His assistant said he was out of the country. But when Ella pressed for details, the woman on the other end whispered, "If you value your life, don't call here again." Then the line went dead. That night, Ella drove to the police station again. But before she could step inside, someone called her name. She turned, and there he was, Daniel Grant, standing by a black car under a flickering streetlight, his face half hidden by the shadow of his coat. "Daniel, calmly, you shouldn't be here, Ella." "Ella," voice trembling, "what's going on, Daniel? Why are you following me? Why the messages?" He glanced around, stepped closer, and lowered his voice. "Daniel, because you don't understand what you stepped into. The night you gave me that meal, you didn't just save me. You saved something else. Something you were never supposed to see." Ella, confused what he mean, he hesitated, like he was weighing a secret too heavy to share. Then he handed her a small flash drive. "Daniel, if I don't make it, this will tell you everything." Before she could respond, headlights flashed from behind. A black SUV screeched to a halt. Daniel's eyes widened. "Daniel," urgent whisper run. "Ella, don't look back." She screams, ducks behind a parked car. And when she looks up, Daniel's gone. The SUV peels away into the night. In the middle of the street, the flash drive glints under a puddle. She grabs it, heart pounding, and drives off into the storm. In her apartment, she plugs in the flash drive. A single video file appears. Time-stamped the night she met Daniel years ago. The footage is grainy. Security camera. It shows the diner. She watches herself handing Daniel the plate of food. But then a man in a suit walks up to the counter behind her. Mr. Miller, her old boss. He hands Daniel a briefcase, whispers something, and leaves. Daniel glances toward the camera, almost knowingly, before turning back to his meal. Ella freezes. Music builds tension, low, pulsing tone. The next file on the drive is labeled Miller account records. Bank transfers, offshore payments, dozens of names she doesn't recognize, but one stands out. Daniel Grant. He wasn't just a man down on his luck. He was part of something bigger, something dark, and her small act of kindness might have exposed it all. Slow, dramatic piano. As thunder cracks outside, Ella hears tires screech again. She runs to the window. The same black SUV sits parked across the street. Its headlights blink twice. Her phone buzzes again. You have something that doesn't belong to you. Her kindness once saved a stranger's life. But now, that same kindness may cost her own. By the time the storm cleared, Ella had made her choice. She was done running, done hiding. If Daniel died trying to tell her the truth, then she'd make sure the world knew it. Rain fades, replaced by the faint hum of a laptop booting up. She opened files again, scrolling through every document, every transaction, every hidden name. And that's when she found it. A transfer labeled Project Haven. Phase 3 funding. Millions of dollars routed through offshore accounts. And at the top of the list, Mr. Miller, her old diner boss. The same man who'd fired her, humiliated her, and stolen her last paycheck years ago. He wasn't just a businessman. He was laundering money through fake charities. And Daniel, he'd tried to stop him. The truth hit Ella like a wave. Daniel hadn't been the villain. He'd been a whistleblower. And somehow, her small act of kindness that night had drawn her right into a secret war. Scene shift. Tires crunching over gravel. A car door slams. It was 3 a.m. when Ella parked outside the same diner where it all began. The windows were boarded up now. The neon sign flickered weakly. Open 24 hours. But inside, one light still burned. Mr. Miller sat at the counter, nursing a cup of coffee, staring into the reflection of the glass. Ella's heart raced. She pushed the door open. Door chime jingles. Miller. Without looking up, I was wondering when you'd come back. Ella, steady but shaking, you lied to me. About everything. About Daniel. He smirked, setting his coffee down. Miller, he was a thief. A traitor. You were just collateral. Ella, he was trying to stop you. Beat of silence. Rain taps on the window. Miller, low. Menacing, you think anyone will believe you? You're just a waitress. Soft, defiant music begins, piano and strings rising together. Ella reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the flash drive. Ella, calmly, not anymore. Earlier that night, she had uploaded every file, every document, to a journalist she trusted. And now, as Miller's phone buzzed and the color drained from his face, she knew he was realizing it too. Miller, furious, what did you do? Ella, what you never expected. I fought back. He stood, shouting, but before he could take a step, red and blue lights washed through the diner windows. Police burst in, shouting orders. Miller's hands went up, trembling, and as they cuffed him, he turned to Ella, his voice trembling with disbelief. Miller, you don't understand. It goes higher than me. They'll come for you next. Dramatic pause. Ella's eyes hardened. Ella, then they'll know who they're dealing with. Soft fade to morning ambience. Birds chirping. A news anchor's voice plays faintly in the background. News reporter. Voiceover this morning. Authorities confirmed the arrest of local businessman Harold Miller in connection with an international money laundering investigation. Whistleblower documents leaked online have exposed multiple shell companies and fraudulent charities. The sound of a coffee maker brewing fades in a familiar comfort. Ella stood by her window, sunlight finally breaking through clouds. She smiled faintly, whispering, "Ella, you did it, Daniel. We did it." Hopeful yet bittersweet. She returned to the diner, one last time. That evening, the place where it had all begun. A new sign hung above the door, Ella's Haven. Her staff laughed and served customers. No suits, no secrets, just kindness. For the first time in years, she felt peace. Then, the sound of a phone vibrating on the counter. A soft, ominous tone. She glanced down. A message from an unknown number. Ella slowly looked over. Ella? Across the street. Not the only one who knew. A man in a dark suit watched her from inside a parked car, his face hidden behind tinted glass. The car drove away before she could react. Justice was served, but the game wasn't over. Music swells with haunting strings. Because sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. It just paints a bigger target on your back. If this story gripped you to the core, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Because part 4 is coming soon, and trust me, the real story behind Daniel's secret hasn't even begun. It had been 6 months since the night Ella handed over that envelope. The night everything changed. Narration, they said justice was served. That the corrupt businessman's arrest had closed the book on Daniel's story. But in small towns like Millstone, the truth doesn't stay buried. It lingers in whispers, in shadows, and sometimes in the shape of a black car parked across the street. For weeks, Ella had noticed it. Always there. Same spot. Engine off. Windows tinted so dark she could see only her reflection in them. At first, she told herself it was paranoia. After everything she'd been through, maybe her mind was just protecting her. But then one night, she saw it move, slowly, following her home. Rain slicked the pavement as she walked, clutching her bag. She took a shortcut through the alley behind the diner. When she turned the corner, headlights flashed. The black car crept forward. Her breath caught. She started running. Inside her apartment, she locked every door and turned off every light. Heart pounding, she peeked through the blinds. The car was parked outside her building now. The engine idled for a minute, then went silent. The next morning, she found something on her doorstep. A folded newspaper. No note, just a red circle drawn around a small obituary. Daniel Cole. Case officially closed. But the handwriting wasn't hers. Later that day, Ella went to the police. She spoke to Detective Morris, the same officer who'd arrested Daniel's old boss. He looked tired, distracted, probably just someone curious about the case. He said, "Don't go looking for ghosts, Ella." But when she pressed, his tone changed. "Whatever you think you saw, leave it alone." That was when she realized Morris was nervous. That night, she dug out Daniel's old envelope from her drawer. The files inside were encrypted, but one folder was labeled Project Haven, the same name she'd given her diner. Coincidence? Or a message? She took the drive to friend Caleb, an ex-IT guy who owed her a favor. They met at an old storage unit. As his laptop hummed to life, the files began to decrypt. Inside were surveillance logs, coded messages, and one phrase repeated again and again, "Internal asset decode." Caleb frowned. "Ella, Daniel wasn't just an accountant. He was working with someone, maybe law enforcement." Her stomach dropped. "You mean he was undercover?" Before he could answer, a shadow moved past a crack in the door. A man's voice called out, "Ella Reed?" They froze. Caleb closed the laptop, killed the lights. Through the window, the black car sat under a flickering street lamp. The driver stepped out, holding an umbrella. Ella whispered, "We need to leave now." They slipped out through the back, sprinting through puddles toward the diner. Once inside, Ella locked the doors and turned off every light except one. The diner felt different now. Smaller, tighter, as if the walls themselves were listening. She pulled out the laptop and reopened the file. There, buried in the metadata, was a hidden folder, audio logs. Daniel's voice came through the speakers, faint but clear. If you're hearing this, they know. Haven was never a diner. It was a drop point for evidence, Ella's breath hitched. The diner, her diner, had been used to store something Daniel died protecting. A crash echoed from outside. Glass shattered. She ducked down behind the counter as the front door creaked open. The man from the black car stepped inside, his shoes squeaking on the wet tiles. "Ella Reed," he said calmly, "I'm not here to hurt you." She peeked up. He wasn't a thug. He wore a badge clipped to his belt. FBI. The man introduced himself as Agent Pierce. He knew her name, her story, and Daniel's file. "You were never supposed to find that envelope," he said. "Cole was working for us. Deep cover. His evidence brought down a trafficking network. But some people didn't want that case reopened." Ella's voice trembled. "So who's been following me?" He hesitated. "Someone who thinks you still have what Daniel took." She stared at the laptop. "You mean the evidence?" Pierce nodded slowly. "Whatever's left, they'll kill for it." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, then at her. "We need to move. Now!" They ran outside as thunder cracked overhead. The black car was gone, but not for long. In the distance, 2 headlights appeared, speeding toward them. Pierce shouted, "Get in!" They dove into his vehicle as bullets shattered the diner's windows. The tires screeched as they tore down the rain-slicked road. Ella clutched the drive in her hand. "What's on this, Pierce?" He glanced at her. "Something your friend died to protect. And something they'll never stop looking for." A truck swerved behind them, ramming their rear bumper. Pierce fought the wheel, the tires screaming. "Hold on." They spun out, crashing into a ditch. Airbags exploded. Silence followed, except for the rain. Ella opened her eyes, dazed. Pierce was unconscious. The flash drive had fallen from her hand, lying in a puddle outside. She crawled toward it, trembling. A pair of black boots stepped into her view. A man's voice, deep, calm, cold. "You shouldn't have opened that envelope, Miss Reed." She looked up and froze. It wasn't a stranger. It was Detective Morris. "If you were Ella, would you run or fight for the truth? What do you think was on that flash drive? Comment your theory below. And don't miss part 5 of The Waitress Who Gave Away Her Last Meal, where the truth behind Haven finally comes to light.